Introduce an old friend, someone I met almost 20 years ago, Sascha Meinrath. So I never remember your actual proper title anymore, Sascha. You are the director of XLab, which is the part I knew, but the Palmer Chair in Telecommunications at Pennsylvania State University, Penn State. And Sascha is someone who's done a lot of important thinking over the years, and he's been someone I think of remarkable integrity, who, even when everyone else was going along with a policy idea or something like that, if Sascha didn't think it was right, he'd be happy to put on the brakes. Is something that I respected as someone who, I don't like it when my friends go into DC, but Sascha was certainly one who did not engage in any groupthink. But the most important thing, and something that I hope people can think about, is what Sascha has done for all kinds of other people. I continually run into people who started their, they came out of college and they get a job with the Open Technology, was it Initiative at first? Initiative, now the Open Technology Institute at New America. OTI gave many people a chance when they're coming out of college with good ideas to work in an idea where they could be challenged, where they could work on mesh, wireless, community networking, all kinds of interesting projects around how we can make technology more democratic. Many of those people are going on to do really great things. So Sascha, thank you for giving them an opportunity and setting them on their way.
All right, we're going to see if this works. I'm going to grab this off there. We'll see if this, oh, it does. Great. OK, so voila. I've got 75 slides, 15 minutes. Just blink with your eyes open. We'll be fine. All right, so I got my start climbing around on roofs. And I point this out. This is me 20 years ago, a younger, sexier Sascha. The internet was built by amateurs. The original community networks were built by amateurs. The original cat TV stuff was built by amateurs. Frankly, if you can build that Lego ship that your son, daughter, nephew, niece, what have you, brought home, you can build a network. And I would say that in like 6 to 12 months, you can be an expert builder of 21st century infrastructure. This is not to poo-poo what experts in this space do. It's simply to say that this is a very accessible technology that everyone should be involved with. So today, I climb around on roofs. This is me after a different keynote with friends over at the SCLO library. I'm still dressed up in a suit, climbing on our roofs, building a television white space network in this case. Still having fun. But I also split my time between State College and DC, which means I often kind of feel like this. Because DC is a crazy place. Chris alluded to this. But frankly, the on-the-ground reality that we all experience is somehow like a bad acid trip, interpreted in wild and crazy ways, the higher up the political chain you get. So I'm going to talk about broadband mapping today, and in particular, its brief history, which is to say the Kingsbury Commitment of 1913. Because at this point in time, we had an opportunity to support the home rule telephony movement and chose not to. In fact, when we did our original broadband mapping, we had a pretty good idea of where things were and where they weren't. Here's Pennsylvania in 1891, I think. Let me tell you, our broadband maps have only gotten worse since then. Now, the Wilson administration at the time, 1913, was like, OK, we've got an idea. We're going to make this accord with AT&T. Boom. Everything's going to be fine. And we all know that the next 80 years were not so good. In fact, AT&T was like, I wonder what we're going to do next, right? Like, they took over everything. And we all suffered because of it. We paid more for worse service in fewer locations. And that lasted 80 years. So when I'm looking at what's happening today in telecom, I'm like, let's not do this again. So nearly 100 years later, we've got this yeoman's work. Folks like Blair Levin and others did, the Sisyphean task of coming up with a national broadband plan. And as a key part of that, we said, we want to map broadband in the United States. Well, this is, frankly, a horrible map. And in fact, I said so. This is a quote from me talking about the problems of this map. I'll come back to that in just a moment. Because the myth of these official maps is that we have broadband access. And I'll give you just one example, something that most people don't talk about in terms of why the maps are so bad. And you kind of have to dig, right? As a policy analyst and what have you, I dig through the weeds. And this is about as weedy as you can get. If you look at the instructions for Form 477 that all ISPs have to fill out, you get to this text. And if you're reading this closely, you realize that broadband access is defined using this. What does that mean? Well, I've tried to figure that out. Nobody knows. It's not defined. Now, I have a 2-year-old. Any folks here, parents in the audience? All right, if I give her a crayon and tell her to draw, what do you think that map looks like? Not unlike our official national broadband map, because you can basically draw whatever you want as long as you claim that without an extraordinary commitment, you could deliver broadband. And then legislators who don't read the instructions of Form 477 say, we have access there. And so we end up with, in essence, this crazy thing that makes me feel a little upset, right? This is me in DC saying, wait, this broadband map isn't about access. Which brings us to reality, right? The on-the-ground experience that we all face, especially throughout rural America. So here's the first part of the quote. Here's the second part of the quote. And the thing is, I wasn't saying this year or last year. This is me in June 2011 saying this is going to be a debacle, a boondoggle, a disaster, which is what it really has become, because it covers, it hides, it obfuscates all manner of sin. So this is what we have. And to bring home the point, there's Form 477. That's the reality is experienced by rural communities across the United States every day. And of course, this makes me feel, after years and years and years of talking about this, a little frustrated. Like, why can't we seem to get this right? So something has to be done, right? Clearly. So if I were to shave my beard and put on a top hat, I look like this. And in fact, the reality is we can solve this problem. This is not an insurmountable obstacle to informed decision making. Which brings us up to the complexity, the reality of what informed decision making needs to look like today. And that's this project that I'm here to talk with you about. So the PA, the Pennsylvania Mapping Methodology, is sort of a first foray, along with folks like Chris at Institute of Local Self-Reliance, like the OTI crew, Georgia and Chris and Josh right back there. Can you guys wave? The folks that have taken the mantle and are extending what OTI does today in Washington, D.C. John Windhausen, are you around here somewhere hiding? And all the folks at Shelby. These are like a crew of experts. It's like the A-team of telecom mapping. It's the geek A-team, as it were. And our idea is like, okay, let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater. Let's use the Form 477 data. It's sort of aspirational. It's like, here's where we advertise connectivity exists. I'm like, okay, well, we'll use that in a map. And then we'll use something called Measurement Lab, a platform that we originally created in 2009 to show the FCC, here's how you could do broadband mapping. Because what they had told me when I met with them is, it's impossible, impossible to collect actual broadband data at scale. So we created this thing, and we're like, okay, well, we're going to get actual broadband data. It started out as an experiment. It's now been grown and is being curated again by the OTI team. It's grown into the largest open repository of broadband data on the planet. Petabytes and petabytes and petabytes of broadband, actual broadband speed measurements and a variety of other tools and measures, all freely available to anyone that wants to use it for any purpose. And so I'm like, well, hey, why don't we use it for broadband mapping, right? Like, makes sense. And here's what it looks like. You can go to measurementlab.net if you want to take a look at it. And it uses open tools, right? This is important to me because often what you get is like, this is unbelievably biased. And we can be like, well, show us where those biases occur. We're using open methodologies, right? MLab is built by the scientific and research community for science and research. And we think that an open methodology helps drive that. We think that making everything clearly available and all the data freely available bolsters our ability to make informed decisions. So the output of this project is very simple, right? Build a map that shows where the advertised and the actual speeds align, triangulate, and where they're discrepant, with attention paid to areas that often are overlooked, aka rural America. So our goal this year is roughly, and the OTI people are going to hate me for this, but it'll be like 1 million tests. Let's do this. We can do that, right? Like, there you go. Well, that's globally, right? So we're going to get 1 million tests in Pennsylvania, give or take. And that's a whole lot. You know, was it Reagan? I think it was like trust but verify. So we're going to do a lot of verification to see what the on-the-ground reality looks like vis-a-vis what people are reporting our broadband services and access and et cetera are. Okay. I love this. It's like sort of a probability. I push the button. It may or may not go forward. There we go. So how are we going to do this? Well, this is a core part of this, right? Talking to people. There's also the case that, like, because one of our partners is Google, we could be like, hey, if somebody searches for broadband speed test, can you put us at the top? I love monopolies, right, when they work on our behalf, right? So, so that works too. But in essence, it's really this, right? We want to do this outreach throughout all these folks that are in this area. And I want to point out, even though we're focused on Pennsylvania for this particular project, anyone can do this anywhere. And I would encourage people to do this anywhere. I feel like better data helps everyone. So this is part of that. I would say also, you know, the data collection and making a big push this summer into the fall to get to that 1 million tests. Right? Because we want so many data points that you can't then ignore the import of this work. We know there's methodological shortcomings and all that, but 1 million tests tells you there's something there worth looking at. And then finally, this report, this analysis that we're releasing first to the legislature, but then publicly. All the data is available, all the reporting, all the methodology, everything is going to be publicly available, we hope, so that other people, like, we're just one team. We're hoping there'll be a lot of teams that are wanting to do this kind of work. So, is this the silver bullet we've all been waiting for? No. But it is a big step forward. Right? If science is an iterative process, this is a large leap in the right direction of how you should do broadband mapping. And my hope is all of you will both take part, provide feedback, critique, hopefully constructive, etc., but then also keep iterating through this, create better, more informed data for decision makers. And to hold like the corrupt bastards like, you know, that are voting for, you know, elimination of home rule to account in the face of overwhelming evidence that what they're doing is creating harm and ignoring on-the-ground realities. So today, I would say to wrap up, I'm feeling like, you know, like we can do this. Much like building a next generation network, you don't need to be some computer science geek. You don't need to be a network scientist. You just need to know some of the people in this very room, and in like a few months, you too can be an expert in this space. So thank you. I know that probably folks have questions, but I'm sort of shoehorned in here and there's not a lot of time, but you can reach me. I tend to be very responsive to a variety of different media. So please do if you have questions, and I'll be around this evening as well. Thank you very much.